Konnichiwa, good afternoon, what's up? It's Rupert Sensei here, and today I'm with the language master, the legend himself, the speaker of 20 languages, Lingo Steve. How are you doing, my friend?
こんにちは。久しぶりです。久しぶりです。I'm doing fine.
久しぶりですね。元気ですか？
はい、おかげさまで元気ですよ。
And I'm sure everyone remembers you from last time we did the video over in Osaka.
Yes, in the park.
And I'm sure everyone remembers the marvelous display of your language abilities that you showed. Could you just introduce your name in as many languages as you can?
そうですね。まず日本語で、
はい、
ね、
お願いします。
僕はね、スティーブと申します。
はい、
ね、そして日本に9年間住んでたんですよ。
はい、
70年。
すごいですね。長い。
Moi, je parle 20 langues, dont le japonais, le français et autres. 学习这个语言，我觉得非常有意思。任何人可以学习任何语言，你知道吗？这是я говорю по-русски, да, но я начинал изучать русский после, когда у меня было 60 лет. 지금 한국어 할 수 있어요? 그렇지만 지금은 많이 한국어로 ich kann auch Deutsch sprechen, я prato också svenska, rozmawiаю ukraińską mowою. يتحدث اللغة العربية. من يكم زبان فارسی بلدم.广东话呢? Då sé con广东话. 广东话 toma de 거의 español, por supuesto, puedo hablar español también. Certo, parlo italiano, parlo portuguese.
Okay.
Tutte le lingue.
That's amazing. Okay, so Steve, the topic of today's video is the other day I asked my Instagram audience what their biggest concerns they have when learning a language, and we've got a number of questions here, so I thought it'd be fun to go through those together. So first question there, Steve.
Yeah.
When starting a new language from scratch, if you're a very, very beginner, what approach do you have? Do you start from building up your vocabulary? Do you start from listening to get used to the sounds? What's your take?
Okay, first of all, let's assume that you're familiar with the writing system. Okay, so if you're an English speaker learning Japanese, that's not the case. You have to learn the writing system. You have to learn hiragana, katakana, and kanji. But like for me learning Arabic and Persian, I had to begin by learning the alphabet. Because I think reading is very important. Reading is very important in order to acquire vocabulary. But not only reading and listening. But if I only listen, it's very difficult to understand. It's just noise. If I have a simple story, a couple of minutes long, and I can read it on the computer and I can look up words, and then I can listen to it sentence by sentence, slowly I start to break down this language. And I do it with a lot of repetition. Because a new language it's all about acquiring new habits. So you need a lot of repetition in the early stages. I don't worry too much about the grammar. I might get an overview of the grammar, but I'm going to forget any grammar explanation. So mostly it's just about getting words in me.
So much of my audience, they want to be able to speak English, right? They've kind of already done all their reading and their writing. They did so much in school and so much like tests. When should a student really start to focus on speaking, and what speaking advice do you have there?
First of all, you can start speaking anytime.
Right.
It's important though that the speaking be meaningful. So if you're in a group, Eikaiwa group, and you're always talking about the weather or things that aren't very interesting because the level isn't very high, that's actually not doing much for you. I still think you can, if you can understand like American, programs on Netflix like Friends, okay? Or Cheers or one of those programs, you're gonna be able to speak. If you can develop your listening comprehension and your vocabulary and your familiarity with the culture to that level, then you'll be able to speak. So I guess my advice is, first of all, don't neglect the listening and the reading. Build up your vocabulary, always. Continue doing that. You can do it anywhere, anytime. That's point number one. Point number two, when you get an opportunity to speak, just go for it. Don't second guess yourself. Don't think, oh, I didn't do well. Don't worry when you can't remember a word. Don't worry about your pronunciation. Don't worry about anything. Because the more you speak, the more you use the language, the more you listen, the more you read, you will only get better. You're not going to get worse. And the more you put yourself in those situations, the sooner you're going to improve.
Exactly. I think at times we can be our own worst enemy, right? If we're always second guessing ourselves, if we're saying, what if I make a mistake? You know, we can build up so much anxiety, but in reality, I don't think the person who you're speaking to is really even worrying about those things.
They're not judging you. They're just communicating.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have pronunciation that is good enough that people can understand you. So if your pronunciation is so poor that people cannot understand you, that's a problem. But as long as people can understand you, and especially if you can understand them, a big part of any conversation is you have to understand what the other person is saying. Comprehension is key. You have to build up your comprehension so you can understand what they're saying, and your pronunciation has to be good enough so that they understand what you're saying. And at that level, communication is happening.
Exactly, because I guess half of a conversation is listening. So if your listening skills aren't up to scratch, then you're not going to be able to have that back and forth. Well, next question there, Steve. We kind of brushed up on the importance of vocabulary before, but what kind of methods do you use to learn your vocabulary, you know, and not just learn them and then remember them for a week or for a month, but to remember them for a long-term use?
Okay. First of all, you won't remember them for the long-term use, okay? You have to accept that. Anything you learn, you're likely to forget.
True.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And when we learn something and then forget it and learn it again, we learn it better. So there's nothing wrong with forgetting, nothing wrong. We can do things like review them in lists or review them in flashcards.
Yeah.
But, you know, there are so many words. If you just keep exposing yourself to the language, these words will appear often enough in different contexts that eventually you will learn them. But it is a long road.
That's right. It's a long road. Sometimes we forget it at times.
It's a long road. No shortcuts.
No shortcuts. That's right. So going on from there, Steve, especially with my audience, they're Japanese trying to learn English, and a lot of the sounds in the language are just so different. Like, you know, Japanese people tend to struggle with their R's and L's and B's and V's. So what kind of exercises do you do or things do you do to kind of strengthen the muscles in the mouth, or do you not worry about it so much?
I mean, I have seen sort of diagrams of the mouth and where you put your tongue and stuff like that. I don't know. You know, I haven't used those. I tend to believe, you know, I'll tell you a silly story.
All right.
When I was young, my father could move his ears. Can you see my ears move? And I couldn't.
Okay.
And I just sat there. I want to move my ears like my father. And I just sat there like watching TV and just ears move. And eventually they moved. But what I'm trying to say is that I think what's very important in pronunciation is intonation.
Right.
I would listen to short snippets of the language and try to imitate the intonation.
Right.
And if I get the intonation right, my English is going to sound more natural. And if I get the intonation right, a lot of the individual sounds are going to naturally come.
Okay, well, Steve, those were the main questions of today. Thanks so much for answering those.
I enjoyed it, and I wish all of your listeners and learners of English every success.
Perfect. Do you have any last words of advice to leave all the audience with?
Well, I think the main thing is to try to find ways to enjoy learning any language. You gotta be positive. So find things you like to do in the language, programs you like to listen to. If you keep it positive, you work on enjoying it. Don't worry about your mistakes. Don't worry about the next TOEIC test. If you enjoy it, you will continue to improve.
Exactly. Just keep positive, keep having fun, and keep trying to challenge yourself a little bit. Thanks so much, Steve. Everyone, make sure to go check out Lingo Steve's channel.
Yes, please.
Okay, everyone. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you had fun. I certainly had a lot of fun interviewing Steve. It was amazing. We talked about some really interesting things. And if you did learn something new, if you found this video helpful, please smash that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and Steve's channel too. Okay guys, stay happy, stay healthy, do your best with your English studies. じゃあありがとう。また今度。
Hadouken! Perfect.